Hello, I'm Elif and this is a recap for episode 58 of the series Cranberry Sorbet, or One Love 24 hours after Turkey and before dubbed for TV. Cranberry is taken aback by Görkem's behavior, and her tongue is tied. However, Görkem's ranting hasn't ended yet, and she continues, "My servant is supposed to come here. He does all my work. You also gradually get used to my routine." At that moment, Fatih comes down, and Görkem says to him, "I think you didn't tell your mother I'm not veiled." Shocked, Cranberry asks Fatih, "Did you know?" Fatih replies, "Of course, I knew." Görkem says, "I wore hijab to please my family. Just as your kids do many things to please you." Cranberry can't respond and falls silent. Then, when she's alone, she clasps her head in her hands. Kayman is still upset that he couldn't attend Görkem's wedding ceremony alongside Gökhan's family and tells her, "Get a divorce as soon as possible so our marriage can become official." Gökhan falsely claims that his wife doesn't agree, but he tries to resolve everything. When alone, he mutters to himself, "This marriage is a disaster.
İyiyim, sağ ol.
Do I have to cage myself again?"
İyiyim ben de.
After complaining to Abdullah
Cemre'yi çok
about
özledim.
Görkem's behaviors,
Annemler de
Cranberry
özledi.
remains restless and calls Nusama, recounting the incident and says, "Doğa was different from us, but she tried to fit in. At least she wasn't rebellious." Nusama says, "If you had learned from Doğa from the beginning, it would have been better for us." Olev goes to have dinner, turning on her phone's audio recording, attempting to talk to Cranberry to prove she didn't provoke her, but Cranberry doesn't give anything away and dismisses Olev. Nilari, who hasn't given up on finding her wealthy family, asks Doğa to intervene so she can meet her lover again. Giray agrees because of Doğa, and Nilari spends the whole time narrating family gossip to Giray, and Doğa is tormented. Finally, when Giray takes Nilari's wrist to remove her cup for identity testing, he says he's willing to undergo the test to conclude the matter, and Nilari is delighted. Finally, Omid, exhausted, goes to see Rüzgar and angrily says, "You're favoring your wife. I told you to fire her, but you promoted her." Rüzgar replies, "What are you saying? I don't act according to others' words. I don't mix work and personal matters. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just confiding in my friend, and you eavesdropped. If you're upset, go confront your wife. Don't try to escape her by making her jobless." Omid says, "You're really low." Rüzgar replies, "I didn't lie. I did nothing to be ashamed of. I stand by what I said. I advise you the same." Nilari, upset by the newlyweds' mannerisms, taunts her about her personal maid, and Görkem calmly smiles and says, "I do whatever I want." Nilari asks, "Are you going to roam unveiled in front of my husband?" Görkem replies, "If he feels bothered, he can keep away from me." Cranberry says, "Mustafa doesn't pay attention to such things." Görkem replies, "Great. If he doesn't care, neither should you." Abdullah sends Olev a credit card through Yusuf and assures her that he will fulfill all her needs. Olev angrily breaks the card and tells Yusuf to tell Abdullah she doesn't need anyone. At the Onal's house one night, when everyone gathers around, Abdullah gestures toward Görkem and says, "You seem different today." Görkem replies, "You'll see me like this from now on." Abdullah adds, "It's respectable for us." When Görkem mentions that she went to kiss her parents' hands with Fatih in the morning, Cranberry exclaims, "Your mother must be thrilled. Her prayers have been answered." Görkem quickly responds, "Not just my mother. Your prayers have been answered too." Olev, aware of the situation between Rüzgar and Nusama, goes to Rüzgar's house at night and tells him that she's on his side if it leads to Omid and Nusama's separation. She says, "Looking for some excitement? A veiled married girl." Rüzgar retorts, "Olev, you're pregnant with your step-cousin's child. Focus on the divorces that happened because of you," and he kicks her out. That night, Omid tells Nusama everything about Rüzgar. Nusama, incredulous, says it must be a misunderstanding or Rüzgar is being careless again, and she decides to talk to him herself the next day to clear things up. The next morning, when Cranberry realizes that Görkem wants the towels washed every day, she says it's not possible. Görkem intervenes fervently, emphasizing the importance of cleanliness and how everyone should sleep on clean bedsheets every night. Then she states she doesn't want her clothes washed with the others. Cranberry, who considers herself the queen of cleanliness, is annoyed by Görkem's words. At Fatih's request, Doğa and Cemre come to the mansion to meet his father's family. Everyone is happy to see them, and Cranberry, who no longer sees Doğa as a threat, treats her kindly and even suggests buying a car for her to make her commuting easier. When Görkem and Doğa are alone, Doğa asks if she has adjusted to being there, to which Görkem replies, "I grew up in this very environment." It's not hard for me. If I want to do something, I'll do it. Whoever says anything, I'll have an answer for them. Doğa smiles and says, don't be too harsh. People in this house will regret it. Görkem responds, I'm not like you. Nusama goes to see Rüzgar and bashfully tells him that Omid has said he has feelings for her. Rüzgar doesn't deny it and remains silent. Nusama asks, don't you have anything to say? Rüzgar replies, can't any man other than your husband have feelings for you? Aren't you desirable? Nusama admits, you're right. Rüzgar adds, yes. I had something going on in my heart. Your husband heard my words. What have I done wrong? I'm just being true to my feelings. As Nusama is about to leave, Rüzgar asks, you didn't know? Nusama thinks about her moments with Rüzgar and calmly says, I knew. Rüzgar smiles. Nusama gathers her belongings and leaves the building. Nilari notices Görkem measuring Cemre''s room, and when she realizes Görkem wants to turn it into her dressing room, she exclaims, you can't do that. Görkem retorts, I'll do it and your mother can't do anything about it. Panbeh intervenes upon hearing their commotion, and when she understands the situation, she says, this is my granddaughter's room. Whether she stays here or not, this room remains hers. You can't touch it. After they leave, Görkem remarks, they still haven't recognized me. During an event in the presence of Kızılcık's family, she is awarded the best morning television program, and as she begins her speech, Kayman enters. Kızılcık pauses briefly and continues her speech about love destroying the lives of young girls, then turns to Kayman and says, you can't approach me with the title of a woman in temporary marriage. I won't do for you what I did for Doğa. I won't support you. I'm doing this so you won't suffer in the future. Kayman leaves crying. At night, Metehan calls Kayman to check on him, and when she realizes his crying, she gets upset, and they have a heartfelt conversation. Gökhan understands that Kayman is talking to Metehan and again warns him about his relationships with other men. Kayman says, my mother disowns me. You won't let me see my friends either. Gökhan replies, I'm here. Let's go to my parents now and set up the iftar table. You have to do these things now. Nusama informs Omid at home that she won't be going to work anymore and asks him not to pursue this matter further. Meanwhile, Omid hides the premiere of his song from Nusama at the request of his program manager so she wouldn't see it. He tells Nusama that he's going to the venue for the performance. That night, Panbeh reports the events to Fatih, who tells Görkem, Cemre's room remains as it is. Görkem pretends to be upset and claims she had no ill intentions. Panbeh looks at her triumphantly with a smile. Later that night, Giray calls Doğa and tells her that Nilari has been in her office all day and drove her crazy. He advises Doğa to accompany Nilari from now on and not leave her alone. Doğa, enjoying talking to Giray, agrees with a smile on her lips. Nusama decides to surprise Omid and make him happy, but when she enters the venue, she sees the unveiling ceremony taking place. Olev tries to downplay the situation, but the program manager interrupts and tells Nusama, you weren't supposed to come. We agreed with Omid. Your presence here will harm Omid's work. Nusama, with bitterness, says, then I'll leave. She walks out and cries bitterly. Later, she goes home, packs her belongings, leaves the house key on the table, and leaves. In a large and beautiful house where a child's room is arranged, a woman waits for Abdullah. Abdullah enters the house, and Olev approaches him, and they kiss each other. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.